March 4th, 2025. A topic I want to get into today is, I guess, the Trump tariffs are now taking effect, and at least the ones on Canada, Mexico, and I guess China. So, and of course, this is a mixed bag. I'm a little bit nervous about this. In general, I would say that Trump is really doing a pretty good job on about just most everything. He's certainly getting his cabinet people in. He's trying to find waste. I mean, of course, any of these downsizing of any large organization are somewhat helter-skelter, and obviously good people get cut along with bad ones, so to speak. So, but I guess that's the way it is in corporate America, and I guess it's the way it's going to be here for now in the government. And of course, we do need to reduce spending. There's no doubt about it. The government spending is out of control and all that. But now, when we look at the tariff issue, I'm sort of kind of wondering, how that's going to actually play out as things develop. And the one I'm most disagree with is this thing about Canada. I don't see that Canada is a bad actor in this whole deal. Not that I'm Canadian or have anything to do with Canadians particularly, and I don't like their liberal government. And in fact, one of the reasons why I don't want them to become a 51st state is because I think it'd be like bringing another California into the country, only just a little bit more populous. Although there's conservative elements, if it's one state, I mean, you'd have two liberal senators for sure. If it was two states, it was divided up the right way, maybe it would be more workable, but you'd still have a lot of House members. But anyhow, so that's sort of the situation as I see it. Yeah, and of course he throws around a lot of numbers that aren't really exactly accurate. As I understand it, it's something like $67 billion trade deficit with Canada. And of course, like I've said in previous videos, that's mostly not manufactured goods, but raw materials, energy, and stuff like that. Which, I mean, I don't really see the advantage of us having to develop that here and use up our limited resources. If we can get resources from Canada, that we would last longer using the Canadian resources. And since they don't have to be shipped across the sea, they wouldn't be interdicted in a wartime environment. So it looks to me like a pretty good situation. It'd be different if it was something overseas and, you could have to get them in the country. But at any rate, we'll see how that plays out. I know that the Atlanta Fed has come out with some kind of a projection that the economy is already going into a recession, which isn't very good. But if it is going into recession, I would say that would be largely due to the high interest rates that we had all last year. And they only started bringing them down a little bit toward that last half of the year. So last few months, and so the impact of these rates they lag. They're a lagging development. So you put on rates months ago, then you start seeing the effects in the short term. Although I think that in general that projection is a little bit on the pessimistic side. But we'll see. One thing I kind of think is that, like for instance, the automotive industry, this is going to be very disruptive because we kind of have a North American automotive industry right now in terms of our production, where parts are made all over the place in Canada, U.S., and Mexico, and the assembly of the vehicles is done particularly in, I guess, U.S. and Canada, maybe some in Mexico also. So it's, like, all right, if you put these tariffs on, exactly how will the car companies react to it? So that's an interesting question. One thought occurred to me, and I don't think that Trump is going to like this if it happens. And what they could do is just consider this tariffs to be an overhead, kind of. In other words, you have your normal administrative overheads and all that sort of thing that you put on all your direct production costs and so forth. Do you understand the kind of accounting? And there's also taxes, of course, that you put actually come kind of based on your profits, obviously. But what if they simply took tariffs and put that in as another overhead? In other words, you don't apply it to specifically. Yeah, sure, you pay it on everything you bring into the country, 25%, but you don't apply it to the sales price that way. What you do is you just put on your overhead and apply it to everything you're selling. So effectively, it kind of gets buried. And since the percent that's coming in from Canada is probably not that much, for example, it just increases the cost of cars a few percent. It's seen as kind of an inflation. And they just keep doing what they've been doing. That would be one approach. which would kind of defeat the purpose if you think about it, unless the purpose is simply raising revenue. Uh, but, but, um, but we'll see how that goes. That seems to me to be an interesting thought. As far as China and Mexico, I think given the labor rates there and all, I don't know that even with a 25% or 20 or 25% tariff, whether or not domestic producers can really beat the price. I mean, is somebody going to really start a business here to manufacture some of these relatively low-tech goods that are often brought in from those countries? Are you really going to start a factory to do that here? And you're going to be able to do it for less money than still paying the tariff and bringing it in? That's another question I think is very interesting to see. And remember, we are at basically a full employment economy anyhow, and even the number of uh, government workers have been laid off or likely to be laid off really isn't that many really compared to the overall economy. So anyway, if you like these videos, please give me a like, subscribe, and click the bell for notifications. Or you can also find me at the address below on Rumble if you're generally prefer that site. So yeah, so at any rate, I think it'll be interesting to see how the tariff thing is the one thing that I kind of agree with the general idea of what he talked about reciprocal tariffs, if it's calculated properly, because if somebody's putting a 20% tariff on us, then I guess we could respond in kind and basically as a negotiation ploy to get them to remove their tariff so that we could then remove ours. That I'm all for. It's this thing of just kind of going after, well, like Canada, I don't get that one. And now China, well, China is because of our ongoing, striving. I mean, we're in an economic conflict, geopolitical conflict with China, so that's what that's about. But then China will probably respond in some way too, and we'll see how that plays out. Mexico, a lot of that I thought was to pressure them into controlling their border better, but I don't. It seems like they've taken a lot of actions, and the border seems to be fairly stable. Now I don't know with all the illegal immigrants not coming in anymore. Are the drugs coming in at the same rate as they were before? I thought that they generally kind of put the mules that carry that stuff in as part of the illegal immigrant flow so that they have kind of a decoy, if you will, that you don't necessarily know which one's carrying the drugs and which one's just coming in to, live here. So, but since the numbers are so radically down, I would think that the flow there would be also reduced, although some may come through tunnels and other exotic ways, as we all know. So at any rate, so that's kind of that. Now, the other thing I guess we have to follow up a little bit more on is this ongoing feud with Zelensky and Trump, which I covered primarily in the last video, and now we have some, I guess, follow-on developments, really. It looks like now that Trump is demanding that basically that Zelensky apologize and show some real commitment to a peace process, whereas his own comments seem to indicate he wants the war to continue. And just like I said in my last video, his goal isn't peace in the near term. His goal is only to first expel Russia from all the internationally recognized territory of Ukraine, and then effectively at that point, hopefully he could have peace then. Okay, so that's his definition, and that's going to be very difficult for him to accomplish. And so Trump has now apparently put a pause on sending military aid to Ukraine over this issue, and so we'll see if that brings him to heel, and he'll come back and apologize and sign on to the what they're calling the rare earth materials deal. I don't think very many of them are really rare earths. I think most of them are actually what we call strategic materials, and things like titanium and lithium and that sort of thing, which aren't rare earth, but they are important materials that you need for a lot of things. There probably are some rare earths in those too, and of course many of those are actually in the Russian occupied areas, and Russia of course is wanting more land than they've already got, not to give up any. So we'll this is going to play out for a while, and we'll see how it is. I know the big thing developed is he got a lot of warm reception in Europe, and various countries in Europe, like I guess Britain and France, are promising him billions of dollars of aid, but relatively minuscule compared to the level of aid the U.S. has been giving. So, and a lot of that, as I understand, are things that have yet to be manufactured, air defense missiles and the like, that will take years to manufacture and get over there, and the war might very well be ended before they actually get possession of this material. So that's kind of the way that's looking at the moment, and we'll again keep an eye on that situation. Of course, the big thing we're looking forward to, which will be shortly, by the time, well, in the middle of when you'll be seeing these videos, will be his. It isn't called a State of the Union, but his basic address on his progress to date as in the first month and a few 5 weeks or whatever it is, and so that'll be interesting to see what he has to say. But he'll be hitting all these issues, I'm sure, and we'll see how it goes. I notice the Democrats have decided to filibuster a bill that wouldn't let men or boys play in girls' sports, which really asinine, but they still want that. They're still pushing that idea, and so that I think that's not going to look good for them. I think that's going to be a very unpopular position ultimately. So we'll of course keep up with all those developments, and as I've often said about that subject is, okay, if you're going to let males play in girls' sports, then why even have a category called girls' sports? Why not just have a category called sports and everybody can play in it? The trouble with that is that very few girls would do very well in that environment. So that's why we have a gender segregated sports. Now, what the transgenders should do, I mean, maybe we could have some kind of special kind of league for them to play in or something. They can play with each other or something. At any rate, so that's about all for this time. I will, of course, as always, be posting this on YouTube and Rumble, and the addresses of my social media accounts are in the description below. I've been posting quite a bit in the last couple of days on X, so so you can follow my ongoing thought process. There, a lot of those are a lot more terse than these videos. So, at any rate, all for now, and until next time.